sure to share your names in the chat and where you're calling in from. Yeah, let's go ahead and share the video now as people are joining. This is just a video with a recap of the mobilizations that we saw this past weekend for Gaza, marking 1 year of genocide and 1 year of resistance. And again, as y'all are joining, please just share your name in the chat, where you're calling in from, and why you've joined us here today. And we'll start in about 2 minutes.
I would gladly share the same share until my throat was not needed. I would march the same streets until my feet are blistered and bruised. The community, the sharing of the weight, that moment where you feel in your bones that there are more of us than there is of them.
Everyone, sorry for the tech issues. We're just going to share a video real quick if we can. But as folks are joining, we're going to get started in a couple minutes. But as you all are joining, please share your name in the chat, where you're calling in from, and why you've joined us here today. And we'll start in about a minute. I think people can hear the video but not see it, but it's okay. I think we can maybe skip it as well. Thanks, folks, for joining. Okay, we have a couple hundred people on. Again, we'll start in a minute, just giving people some time to join. My name is Celine. I'm with the U.S. Campaign for Palestinian Rights. And just want to remind people, as you guys join, just share your name in the chat, where you're calling from. And if you'd like, you can tell us why you've joined us here today. And we'll start very, very soon. All right. I think we can maybe go ahead and get started. We do have some ground rules for the chat. I know people are still joining, but well, as people are joining, please introduce yourselves. But our ground rules, we do want you all to connect with each other, but just please be mindful of the size of the event and try to use the chat only to respond to prompts and questions. And if you experience any issues, you can let us know. You can message hosts and panelists. Additionally, any Zionism, racism, sexism, Islamophobia, any oppressive language or harassment in the chat will result in an automatic ejection from the event. So again, we thank you all for joining us here today. For another phone zap, another power hour with USCPR. These have been a way that we've been able to gather people to give people ways to take action, an easy way to take action, and a way to activate newer organizers to increase the impact of our mass mobilization. So we're going to be sharing resources towards the end. And if you'd like to use these resources in your cities with your organizations, we have some toolkits that we'll share in the chat with information on how you can organize your own local phone bank wherever you live. And we encourage you to do so because it's a good way to gather community. It's a good way to offer concrete action that anybody can partake in. Again, as folks are joining, just introduce yourselves in the chat. And I think maybe we can just have, if someone else, I think it's stuck on the screen share, but we'll try to fix the screen share in a second. Okay, so I'm gonna just, while we do that, I'm gonna just ground us a little bit in the moment that we're in before we get started. It's very clear that, the ruling class of this country does not act in the interests of their people. As you all probably saw last week, FEMA announced a $9 billion shortfall for Hurricane Helene recovery, the same day that the US gave $8.7 billion in weapons to Israel. And the US government is giving only $750 to family members affected by the hurricane, which destroyed the lives of so many families. Meanwhile, Israel received over $45 billion in taxpayer money in the last year alone. So I think what's been really clear, what's been exposed in the past year especially, is that the US is out of propaganda and out of excuses for what the entire world sees as very clear, and that it assembles and it arranges for and it directs and all but presses the button for Israel to commit its genocide against our region and against our people. And a few weeks ago, as Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the United Nations, declaring that Israel, quote unquote, wants peace, at that same time, the Zionist occupation army was simultaneously using US provided weapons to obliterate an entire Beirut neighborhood and have since been massacring thousands in Lebanon in an attempt to distract from their failures in Gaza. And for the last 12 months, we've all been mobilizing and organizing to end the genocide in Gaza, again, which Israel has now expanded into Lebanon. And when we started these power hours for Gaza, we were doing them nearly weekly in the beginning. If some of you all were here for that, we never expected that we would still be here 1 year later. But what that means is that we carry on an even greater responsibility to refuse to fall into despair and refuse to get demoralized and refuse to get tired. And it's our responsibility to continue to organize for Palestine and to, understand that it's only through building a mass movement for Palestine that we can deal a real blow to Zionism and imperialism and really push for an arms embargo. In terms of what we've gained over the last 12 months, we've gained the awakening of people of conscience who have shut down streets in opposition of Israel and in support of Palestine. We've gained a student movement that has liberated campuses across the West from the grasp of Zionism. We've gained sharpening of crises inside the ruling class. We've made Palestine unavoidable. And we've developed and gained a newfound stigmatism of Zionism, where it has become more and more untenable to be supportive of Zionism. So what we're going to be focusing on and pushing for and organizing for is an arms embargo, and that's the focus of this power hour today. So we have Mohammed on from USCPR, who's going to share with us policy updates. We have Voulette from the Mask Off Maersk campaign, who's going to talk to us about how to organize for a people's arms embargo. After that, we'll do calls and emails, and then we'll close with resources and ways to take action. So we encourage you to stay till the end. And this will probably be in total 45 minutes. So this is our agenda for today. I don't know if we want to go back. Do we want to show the videos just to recap of just the actions? If we can, let's see if we can do it. Oh, okay.
For a year now. The people of Palestine know this. The people of Yemen know this. The people of Lebanon know this. The people of Iran, the people of Syria, the people of Haiti, the people of Puerto Rico, the global South know this. And we, in the valley of the beast, must be reaffirmed that this is a long march and we're walking with millions of people across this globe. I would gladly chant the same chant until my throat was raw and bleeding. I would march the same streets until my feet are blistered and bruised. The community, the sharing of the weight, that moment where you feel in your bones that there are more of us than there is of them. Brick by brick, wall by wall. Brick by brick, wall by wall. Zionism will fall.
All right, thank you all so much for joining again. We have around 300 people on this call. I'm really glad you all are with us today. And to get started, now that we've opened with the grounding, I'm going to pass it over to Mohammed, who's going to give us some updates more on the policy level. So Mohammed is here. Yeah, pass it.
Thank you, Celine. And yes, thank you to everybody here. Appreciate all the work that you're doing in your community, whether it be engaging your local government, local city council, or engaging your community members. For the topic today, I do want to talk about is specifically what's happening on the Hill. I know there's a lot of fervor happening with Congress being out of session back in their communities. Right now, there's actually members of Congress in Israel right now meeting with Netanyahu, seeking to give more weapons, seeking to coordinate more efforts. But right now, it's a perfect time to talk about something called the JRD, or the Joint Resolution of Disapproval. We know that the U.S. has continued to be the largest provider of arms to Israel throughout. There was a report from the Brown University Cost of War Project that showed that the U.S. had given approximately $18 billion in weapons transfers. There was actually a package that was proposed by State Department given to Congress and to the president for about 20 billion in August. So the the government is about to eclipse its year-long total. And if you can go to the next slide, I think it's very important to show what exactly we're looking at and how we need to kind of approach it. So in November, Senator Sanders will convene a vote in the Senate to block $20 billion worth of weapons to Israel. There are several members of Congress that we are engaging, that our communities are engaging, and that other partners are engaging. But these are the JRDs that have been introduced. There's 6 JRDs in total. They all focus on different weapons. They all focus on different uh, components that the U.S. does give to Israel. These are very needed to be blocked. We are urging people to make calls to their reps, make calls to their constituent offices to ensure that these weapons do not get used. There's credible evidence that these weapons have been used to commit war crimes, violations of international law, and also U.S. law. Um, but right now, Congress is out of session. We know that they'll be coming back after the election. And it's important that they hear from their communities, their constituents, not just to block these PRDs, but to show that money should be going elsewhere for hurricane relief efforts. And so, again, I just want to thank everybody for being on the call. Take a moment to just, save this information, jot this down. But the JRDs from Senator Sanders will be voted on in mid-November this year. We're hoping to mobilize our communities. And again, if you're a member of Congress, is either on the Foreign Affairs Committee or it's a very important voice, continue to call them, continue to contact them, and urge them to vote yes on Senator Sanders JRD, but also to let them know that, again, no more weapons can go to Israel. They're not just using them in Gaza, but they're using them in Lebanon and Syria and elsewhere to target communities and bomb infrastructure that belongs to civilians. So with that, I'll pass it back over to Colleen, and we will send out some materials after, but this is a very important vote. I do just want to say that the GRDs are also the first ever vote that there will be in Congress to directly block weapons to Israel. So I hope that we all take this opportunity to really seize the moment, to really not just stand in solidarity, but also like use our power that we have here in the U.S. to mobilize also our members of Congress to vote no on this. So thank you all, and please let us know if you have any questions.
Thanks, Mohammed. If you would like, you can take a screenshot of this slide, again, around the attempt to block weapons to Israel, and then you will get a follow-up email with more materials. Thanks so much, Mohammed. Okay, next I'm going to pass it to V, who is going to speak to us about organizing for a people's arms embargo through the Mask Off Maersk campaign. So maybe we can go to, I think, the next slide, or the slide after this one. Okay, cool. Yeah, V, go for it. Passing it.
Thank you so much, Celine, and thank you so much, USCPR, for having me here. I know that a lot of us here today and in the movement have been asking ourselves the question of, where do we go from here? What do we do? Feeling unsatisfied or, not seeing the impact of all the work that we've been doing. And though it has been having an impact, we need to think and are asking ourselves, what's the next step to actually being able to stop the flow of weapons that are going to massacre and genocide our people in Palestine, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Yemen, and all across our region. And we know that history really completely changes from moments like this. But we know that history is not just something that is done to us. We help shape history through our actions. We are a part of helping shape and transform that history. And this moment, now more than ever, we're asking ourselves, what can we do to help shape this moment? What can we do in order to impose a successful arms embargo, right? What can that look like? And these are convos that we have as organizers, convos that we have within our communities. And we're really tasked with the responsibility to figure out how we can effectively impose this arms embargo. And that's where the Maersk campaign started, right? It was a strategy for an actual arms embargo, a people's arms embargo that's not waiting for a decision from the top, asking for it to stop, but a demand from the bottom where the people say, if you won't do it, we will. And instead of blocking weapons from one factory or company through this target, we're able to block them all, inshallah, because Maersk is essential to the functioning and the industry as a whole. And this is, this picture up here is on the left shows a statement that the PGTFU in Gaza, or the Palestinian General Federation of Trade Unions, put out in September, making a call for a people's arms embargo and an ask for labor unions to refuse to deal with military shipments to Israel through all military ships and logistics companies, and especially naming Maersk and Zim. And this is really important because it shows that our people on the ground are looking to us within the belly of the beast to impose an arms embargo from within, and have identified the same targets that we have in order for this to be the most effective, right? And in this moment, we really don't have the time to be ineffective because our people need us. Um, and a people's arms embargo is really about severing that material link between US imperialism and and Zionism tangibly. But it's also about exposing the contradictions within the US, like what Celine was mentioning earlier, right? It's about why are we sending billions of military aid and equipment while Appalachia is flooding and has no resources? Why is the rest of the stock market crashing and average Americans are unable to meet their basic needs while the stock of weapons manufacturers is continuously going up, right? Because right now they're making a profit off of the killing and massacring of our people and refusing to serve the needs of the people here in this country. So we need to impose that cost of facilitating genocide. And weapons is an industry, and we need to take down this industry and all the tentacles that support it, whether overtly and covertly. Logistics is the underlying um, artery that is allowing this to happen, is supporting the backbone of the weapons industry. And Maersk, particularly, is central to every aspect of the weapons industry, right? It's involved in every part of the supply chain of death, whether that's bringing the weapons components to arms companies for assembly here in the US or shipping weapons to Israel once they're ready on behalf of the US, right? We know since October, Maersk has transported more than $300 million worth of weapons components for manufacture to the US for assembly. It is an essential inbound supplier of arms components for a host of arms supply circuits. And research indicates that Maersk has links to the F-35 jet program, which are the jets that are carpet bombing Lebanon right now, and the M830A1 tank cells, which are the tanks that are being used for ground incursions on behalf of Israel. And so Maersk not only is essential to the assembly of weapons, right, in transporting those components, but it also ships weapons to Israel. As we know, Maersk does in fact carry outbound completed arms from the US to the world, not just inbound weapons components. And this is done under US flagships run by Maersk subsidiary, Maersk Line Limited, which is operating under the Maritime Security Program, or MSP. And Maersk has 20 Maersk Line Limited ships under MSP. Maersk itself has one of the largest fleets in the entire industry. But these particular 20 ships are specialized for carrying weapons and weapons components. And two of these ships had Navy escorts, and were blocked by the Yemeni people in the Red Sea in January, right? And we know that two of these Israel-destined Maersk Line ships with Navy escorts were targeted, and these were the Maersk Detroit and the Maersk Cheapskate. And another part of the research I want to share with y'all today too is the Maersk Durban MSP ship has also emerged as a point of interest that has docked 20 times in the Haifa port since the start of the genocide and is on contract with the U.S. Department of Defense to carry arms. We have yet to confirm which arms it carried or to where, but we have an indication of what that is, right? And beyond just Maersk having a role in every aspect of the arms supply chain and every aspect of the weapons industry, we also have confirmation that Maersk cargo containers are delivering consumer goods to illegal Israeli settlements that are currently terrorizing and stealing land from Palestinians in the West Bank. So not only is Maersk essential to every aspect of the weapons industry, they are also a part of the settlement industry in the West Bank. And while Maersk is complicit in all of these different ways, it is also a commercial logistics company. which means that transporting weapons is only a part of their business. There are logistics companies whose entire business is transporting weapons, but with Maersk, the transportation of weapons only comprises a percentage of their business and a small part of their profit margin. So this is a strategy, right? Because transporting weapons is not a major part of Maersk's business, but it is a business that is critical for the weapons industry and for the arms supply chain, especially during this genocide. We believe that this can be isolated and dropped if we as a movement place enough pressure on them, right? And it's impactful because Maersk still plays an incredibly critical role in the supply chain. But it's also winnable because transporting weapons is just a small percentage of their profit margin, right? And for a people's arms embargo, we want a winnable campaign, right? And a target that every aspect of our community and our people can take up, right? Because in this stage of the fight, we need to engage every part of our community and every aspect in all of the sectors that have been mobilized in this moment and consolidate and coordinate our movement. Right? It's a people's arms embargo because we know that it comes from the people, because we know that our strength as a movement is our people power, right? We might not have the same resources, the same connections, the same access um, as the Zionist or the Zionist lobby, but what we do have on our side is the people, right? The people power. And so we need a campaign that's really foundational, right? And able to mobilize and consolidate the strength that we have as a mass people's movement. And so as a movement, we need to take up diverse strategies to attack the same problem. And it's time to turn up the pressure and consolidate into a target that supports all of the campaigns imposing an arms embargo, all of the organizations that are taking on weapons manufacturers, all of the people that are pressuring the electeds in order to impose this arms embargo, and to consolidate and to coordinate and to build off all of the amazing work that's already been done over this past year, right? And to go after Maersk is to go after the entire industry because Maersk directly disrupts the flow of weapons in the supply chain of death being used to genocide Palestinians and Lebanese. And there's a lot of different ways that we can do that. I know there are some questions about how do we do that. So we need to talk about how do we do that? And there's a lot of different ways that we can do that, right? Whether there are clear local targets or not, there are a lot of ways to target Maersk and to put collective pressure, which is why they were also chosen as a target because they are so huge and because they have their hands in so many different things. There's a lot of different ways to pressure them. The first is through divestment campaigns. Pension funds are invested in Maersk. Cities, campuses are also invested in Maersk or have career fairs where Maersk is, tabling or have research programs with Maersk. And so in this next phase of divestment of the student intifada, of divestment resolutions and campaigns that are happening within pension funds and across cities, this is a part of coordinating a goal, right? These divest targets are being able using Maersk as a part of this divestment campaign and this phase of the divestment campaigns is part of working towards a larger coordinated goal of a people's arms embargo, right? Like these divestment campaigns are not isolated from each other because they're also part of a larger goal of placing pressure on this larger target in order to create the conditions for an arms embargo, right? And it connects these campaigns to each other from cities, pension funds, and campuses. Um, for mobilization and direct action is another tactic, right? That we can use in order to materially intervene due to Maersk being an essential inbound supplier of arms components for a host of arms supply circuits, right? And they operate by land, sea, and air. So there's a lot of different ways that can happen, a lot of different ways that mobilization and direct action can happen. Organized labor is another strategy, another tactic to be able to place pressure. The PGTFU statement is a call for labor unions, and we also know that organized labor clogs the arteries of capitalism and of imperialism. So that's another way that to really honor and use the PGTFU statement, which is really an essential and really important statement that is calling on labor and organized labor in the U.S. To take action. There's also boycott and pressuring clients of Maersk. There's pressuring the higher ups of Maersk through petitions, which we're going to talk about at the end in the call to action. But there are a lot of different ways to target MERS. These are just some of them. And I'm happy to talk more with any folks offline if there are questions that you have or other things that are coming up on a local level of how you are thinking about integrating or targeting MERS. But I really just want to end um, by kind of synthesizing why Maersk is a valuable target to consolidate around for an arms embargo, for a people's arms embargo, right? It can demonstrate movement strength by consolidating our movement for Palestine, by bringing in the existing organizations, coalitions, campaigns that are targeting weapons manufacturers, that are pressuring their electeds, that are pushing for divestment together and coordinate us, right? And it can bring together all of this work, union work, labor work, and can offer a role to every part of our movement. The other reason why is because Maersk is complicit in so many ways, transporting components, transporting weapons, links to the Department of Defense, greenwashing their crimes. It was a Maersk ship that collapsed the Baltimore Bridge because they were shipping toxic waste to Sri Lanka, right? And so being able to, they're also, in terms of the labor, are really hated by labor unions and labor because of the horrible working conditions that they force their workers to go under, and the automation that they are pushing across different ports um, in the US that are taking away jobs from workers. So we understand Maersk as a target for the movement as a whole, intersectional target that can coordinate and consolidate not just the Palestine movement, but also environmentalism, but also worker struggles. No, we're at time. So I'm gonna just quickly finish to talk about how we can use diverse tactics across, different strategies to target Maersk. And really, at the end of it, a campaign against Maersk enables us to raise consciousness about Zionism and imperialism, right? Creating a crisis, continuing to create a crisis for the ruling class. And what better way than to disrupt the global flow of capital by targeting this logistics industry leader and being able to really show what the power of the people is and how we can impose this a people's arms embargo while these corrupt politicians and people are not allowing that to happen. Without Maersk, the genocide in Gaza and Lebanon would not happen, or would be majorly slowed down. So let's shut it down, and make sure that we show up for our people in the strongest way that we can possible. So for next steps, just sign the petition. I think we'll send the link, and then there's some days of action that are coming up from October 22nd to 24th. So to get involved with the local action on those days. Thank you so much for having me. I'm sorry I went over.
No, you're so good, V. Thank you so much for speaking about this. And I think it's important that we have clear targets, especially in this moment, especially as there are escalations in our region, that we have like a clear target to organize around. So V can drop an email that you all can reach out to for the campaign in the chat. Otherwise, you can go to the maskoffmaersk.com website to endorse or get involved. So with that, we'll move to the call and email portion. We'll take some time to email through the Maersk petition as well, but I just want to go to the next slide to encourage you all to take 5 to 10 minutes. We'll do 5 to 10 minutes right now, and usually we don't play music during this time because people like to focus on making their calls and reading the scripts. So we're just going to do 5 to 10 minutes of making calls and sending emails. So first thing we're going to do, if we go to the next slide, is use these call and email tools. To call Congress about the GRDs, to block weapons to Israel, to demand hands off Lebanon and Palestine. And again, if you can't get through to the Congress numbers listed in the call tool, you can also Google the member of Congress and find their district office number and try to call there, or just keep calling, because then it means that they're a lot of people are calling at the same time, which is a good thing. So you may need more time as your calls might be on hold, but that's a good sign. That means a lot of people are making calls. So let's do, and again, we encourage you to stay towards the end so we can share resources and links at the very end. And also, this is being live streamed on YouTube, so you will have this access to this. Okay, so yeah, maybe we can share the call links. Like I don't know, Kat, if we want to share the screen share this, but if you go to these links, uscpr.org/ Gaza call, uscpr.org/Gaza email. You will be able to just click to call and click to email. Use those tools. There will be a script. You can personalize the script, but it will go to your representatives directly. So let's just do 5 to 10 minutes. And maybe in the meantime, I'll also just screen share to show you all how this works. And again, their scripts are already written into these tools and you can personalize them if you'd like. So here's the call script. Let's do, Kat will share just to show you all how this tool actually looks. Once you go on the, once you click on this website, you'll have this message. You just put in your contact information, you'll get a call, and then you'll be directed to a script that you can use. Again, feel free to personalize these scripts. But they're making the demands that we've been speaking about today: blocking weapons to Israel, hands off Lebanon, hands off Palestine. So let's do about 7 minutes on this, and then we'll move to the next piece. And then again, if you'd like to also, we'd encourage you all to send an email to the Maersk executives. It's a really quick link, and encourage you all to circulate these links as well. If you make your calls and send your emails during this time and you finish those, please send these to your friends and your networks. You would just sign your name on here, and the email will go directly to the Maersk executives demanding an end to the transportation of weapons and weapons components and an end to contracts with weapons companies. So let's do this for another 6 minutes or so, and then we can come back to resources and next up. All right, we're going to do 5 more minutes sending calls, sending emails and making calls using these links. And we're dropping links and resources in the chat as well. We'll come back in 5 minutes. Kat, can we go to the next slide, please? I think some folks want to see the script on the screen. It's also in the tool itself. We'll come back in about 4 minutes for closing and next step. Again, if you just click on the links that Kat dropped in the chat, you should be able to be directed directly to your representative's offices and contact information. So you'll be able to just click to email or click to call using those links. We'll be back in 2 minutes. If you've finished your calls and emails, please send the links to your networks, to your friends, to your organizations, and encourage them to do the same. And we'll be back in 1 minute to close out with some more resources and other ways to take action. All right, let's come back. Thank you all for signing the petition, for sending your emails, for making your calls. Again, if you were able to finish, please send them to your networks and your organizations. And if not, you can copy and use those links later on. We just want to close out with just some resources that I think would be helpful for you all. We've talked about some of these before. Just want to say we are going to be starting a Stop Arming Israel webinar series next week, starting on October 15th, to talk about, different focuses, different targets that we could focus on. We'll cover Maersk and Chevron. What do you do when your city council isn't moving? How do you pressure corporations? So we'll have more time to dig into like campaign case studies, like the one that was mentioned today. I know a lot of y'all had questions about Maersk, for example, but we'll have time on these webinars to engage those things. So please stay tuned for announcements from USCPR about the Stop Arming Israel webinar series, and we'll send any relevant links for that in the chat. Otherwise, we can go to the next slide. We have a couple of toolkits. The first is the, I think it's the Stop Gaza Genocide Toolkit. Yeah. Stop Gaza Genocide Toolkit, which includes a bunch of links that we use to call and email our elected representatives, and then also different ideas and types of actions, and different types of like resources you all can use for mobilizing pressuring Congress, stickers, flyers, wheat pasting guides, things like that are all in here. So this is the link to the Stop Gaza Genocide Toolkit. And we also do have a city council's toolkit. It might actually be linked in here, but or we're gonna, yeah, we have a city council toolkit that includes actually resources on not just organizing for a ceasefire resolution, that's kind of what it started out as, but we also included a lot from case studies on divestment campaigns. So if you're organizing in your local city council, there's resources here about like, key strategy questions to ask before starting a campaign. What are the key takeaways from case studies, including divestment case studies, how to deal with common challenges, what good talking points can be used for council members and how to navigate opposition, resolution templates, and just how to think about like divestment campaigns, when you're running a divestment campaign in your city. And then if we go to the next slide, we also have a new resource, Drop the ADL from Schools. So this is really exciting. It's just been launched on October 1st. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with Drop the ADL, which was launched in 2020 as a resource that included a letter to progressives encouraging them to drop the ADL, reconsider their relationships to the ADL. And right now we have dropped a schools version. So what is the ADL's role in K-12 schools? What has their role been in attacking ethnic studies curriculum and attacking critical race theory and in trying to push the false conflation of anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism and trying to censor and criminalize Palestinians and teachers who want to learn about or talk about or teach about Palestine. So this is a specific resource. You can actually go to it through the Drop the ADL website, but it's Drop the ADL from Schools. And you can find a letter to educators where we talk about how the ADL has long marketed itself as an expert advisor to schools, but despite its false reputation as a quote unquote civil rights organization, the ADL is obviously not a social justice partner. So there's a lot of resources in here, especially if you're in education. I encourage you to look at this. And let's see if there's anything else. I think there's maybe one more slide. If we can go to the next. Oh, yes. And then there's also just disruptions toolkit. So if you're planning like some kind of campaign event disruption, there's a toolkit for that here as well. And we can drop those links in the chat. There's also a media for actions guide if you go to bit.ly/action media toolkit. And again, highly encourage you all to check out, to continue sharing the links we've dropped in the chat. Go to the maskoffmariska.com website if you want to plug in or learn more about that. Thank you all for joining this webinar, this power hour for organizing for a people's arms embargo. Let's continue to use these resources to take action, and we'll see you at the next webinar or power hour. And again, we'll send out follow-up materials and resources. So really appreciate you all joining. Thanks, everybody.